Bob Schneider. I'm the Executive Director of the Kenosha Community Foundation, and we were happy to supply the refreshments tonight, except I think Don provided the booze, but next time. we want to thank Rita from Francine's for doing a good job again, as she always does. Wow, what a crowd. This is really, if you didn't know it, this is National Community Foundation Week. And so as part of the celebration, our Kenosha Community Foundation decided, this is the second year I think we've done this here at Don Miller's place, and thanks Don for all your assistance. What a place. I don't know if you guys come here regularly, but they have some terrific performances here. Local people who come in, you would be amazed at the talent they have and how exciting they are, and encourage you to come often. A lot of people, just a little bit about the foundation. People ask me, what does the Kenosha Community Foundation really do? And I said, well, we administer permanent endowment funds, and we make grants to nonprofits. So our grant making activity will begin the 1st of January. So if you want to look on our website, kenoshafoundation.org, you'll see our application there. So anybody who is from a nonprofit, that's the only requirement we make, is you be tax exempt to get a grant. But in reality, our mission is to try to use the resources of the foundation and the resources of our endowment funders to make Kenosha a better place to live and work. So we hope events like this contribute to that. We have a really excellent speaker for you tonight, Jeremy Fouchet, right? Foyet. Yeah, French. Yeah, Foyet. I tried. He's from a company in Milwaukee called Milwaukee. And I'm not sure if you would consider him a consultant or you'd consider him a facilitator. It's a new business model that I think really bears some significant attention, because they're doing some wonderful, wonderful work with people up in Milwaukee, and we're really pleased to have him. So you've had enough of me, so I'm going to introduce Jeremy, and he can take it from there.
Well, thank you guys, and this is great. There are some seats up here if people are standing. There's a lot of seats in front. I know it's the dreaded front row, but so I guess the question is, why are we here tonight? And I think we're here probably for a lot of reasons, and some people are creative, some people work in government. There's people from all across the board, and we're all here really to work together. I think one of the things that when I have a lot of these conversations, I've been doing the same kind of talk around the state, working with smaller cities, Milwaukee, cities around the state, and we're talking a lot about why people choose to live in a place. And I get asked a lot because I do a lot of consult. I was just actually in New York doing a presentation yesterday, and the question I get asked a lot is, why don't you do this here? Why do you live in Wisconsin? What's in Wisconsin? And Wisconsin is on a lake. I get that a lot, but. And the one thing that I always come back with is this state and the cities that we live in are unfinished. New York has their story already. Cities like Chicago have their story. We have a lot of creatives, and I think the story is for ours to continue to write. And I think that's why we're here today, to talk how we can kind of work together and do that. So I'm going to go into a little bit about what I do, my company, Milwaukee, and also really a guide to what I call a place-based engagement strategy. That I really think is turning a lot of heads, and a lot of people we're getting asked to fly across the country now to how they can do this model in their city. So is there a lot of feedback here? Should I back up? No. Okay. A little closer. There we go. Okay. So this really Milwaukee. So Milwaukee is a for-profit business model. We did start as a young professional group, actually. That was how we started about 6 years ago. And I always find it funny because we did a bunch of research on young professional groups across the country when we were starting this. And the one thing we came to the conclusion of is that they don't actually do anything. and they're kind of worthless. And we were like, we want to be different. We were doing a social, we were doing these professional development courses, and we're like, we want to change the way people connect to things. And whoops, let me back up here. So one of the things we did was we got asked by Lakeshore State Park in downtown Milwaukee, and a private employer, Badger Meter, which makes water meters, and how do we make a great place to work? And we said, we'll do a fundraiser for this island to talk about the water technology cluster in Milwaukee, but we're going to do it through the arts. And we took over an island. We thought we'd invite about 200 people. At this time, we were just a name. We didn't have a LLC or anything like that. We weren't a nonprofit. And 3,000 people showed up to this island. Well, we had one bathroom. We had no food. We had a lot of booze. And we're like, what do we have here? We have something. What are we doing? And this festival, it happens every year still, and we make large art installations on the island. And there's a lot of live music. There's bonfires on the beach. It's a really nice view in downtown Milwaukee. But the unique thing about this is that after we had 3,000 people show up, we're like, what do we do next? Do we quit our jobs? We don't even have insurance. What are we gonna do here? We either have to quit, or we have to stop doing this. So we embarked on what I call the worst business model ever. We had a free subscription service and free events, and we didn't have a way to make revenue. But we thought we had something here. So the three of us quit our jobs and embarked on a journey. So what we actually found out, and I'm going to talk a little bit more about this, but communities and companies are talking about talent all the time. And what can we do to make a great place to live? What's going to attract people to our cities? And we're changing the conversation with a lot of our employers that it starts with the arts. It starts with why people live in communities. So we don't want to be reactive. We want to be proactive about how do we make our cities great. And what we heard at the beginning was, what most of the time you hear is, well, we've always done it this way. You've probably heard that a lot when you start to work in these type of environments where you're trying to do something together. We tried something like that. It didn't work, so failure was accepted. We already checked the box. We already do that, but maybe we just don't measure it right. We start a task force. That task force leads to a committee. That committee leads to a survey. That survey leads to another task force. So we figured, what can we do to be different? And this became our value proposition. We're going to always challenge the status quo. We're going to empower people to think bold. We're going to talk less and do more. And we're going to create things that matter. And in 6 short years, this is a picture of Wisconsin Avenue in downtown Milwaukee. It's the busiest street in the city. I was told that no one would come down here because it wasn't safe. I was told that no people would come after work. I was told that retail would be dead here. I was told that this just wasn't a place for something like this to happen. And now there's 15,000 people that show up here on a Wednesday for a night market. There's live performances. There's live painting. There's people selling their wares. This year there was over $500,000 in these tents and small business transactions through the course of all the night markets and people selling their merchandise. And then, we do a lot of different unique things in here. And so this is a really cool experience. And I'm going to talk a little bit of experiences, but we went from 100 people that started our group to 202,000 subscribers that subscribe to our newsletter now across the state and across the country. We've created over the last 6 years $1 million in economic development through the vernacular of creative placemaking or through the arts. We've had hundreds of thousands of experience. We build experiences for companies, for communities, and for sometimes just for the city that we live in. And when I say experiences, not event, is you go to an event and you leave an event. We believe we create experiences because people come to them and they share and tell their friends about it. An experience is something that's memorable. Experience is something that you're going to share on social media. And if you can create experiences, you start to really get into to how you attract people to place. So how do we do this? This is what we actually do. We create signature experience to attract, retain, engage, and plan, and we do workshops around community transformation. So we take the 7-20-10 rule into effect. 70% of, this is a Harvard study, 70% of the way what we learn is through experiences. 20% is what we hear from others, and 10% is actually with your formal education. So you can tell why experiences matter to people and why people stay in a place. So here's a perfect example of some things we do. This is a freeway overpass in Milwaukee. It's probably a place you would never hang out at. And we worked with a bunch of artists and creatives to build a swing park underneath the bridge. And now it's the best park in the city. You'll never not go there where there's kids swinging underneath this overpass, which is really interesting because you're like, why would you hang out in a freeway overpass? But it's like this every day. And it's taking a space that was looked at as an eyesore and turning it into a place that when the swings we actually built our rope were starting to fall down, the city wanted to shut it down because it wasn't safe. So they, the community fought back and said, we want this now. This is a part of our neighborhood. And they actually ended up funding it with $1 million, actually. So the park with all around the area. And so the city actually worked because people wanted it. So what we call this is a place-based engagement strategy. What we do for cities and what we do all over is something called, what do we have? It's called asset mapping. So asset mapping is around the environment you live in, around artists in the community that are doing unique things, around the history of a city, around the entrepreneur stories that you hear in your community, around special access in the really neat spaces like this, getting beyond the facade of buildings and finding what's inside of them, and really around community challenges. So we asset people cities like Kenosha. We're working actually with the YP group down here to do an asset map and see where that goes and how we can attract people to place. And I'm going to talk a little bit about one of these things we did and how we used artists in them. And I'll go through this whole thing and I'll show you guys a little bit of how everything we do has an art component to it. So a lot of my business improvement districts and downtown main streets were coming to me and saying, what do we do with our empty storefronts? What are we doing with our empty storefronts? They've been empty. What's a different way to look at them? So what we actually did was it not working? There we go. Perfect. Okay. So the Empty Storefronts Conference, we ended up building an experience where we brought in 25 national speakers and a lot of local speakers, and we hosted a conference in empty storefronts around the community. So actually where the source of the problem was, and it was about non-traditional, traditional, and then we hired a bunch of artists to build a bunch of storefronts around the city and make them, look more appealing than what they were. From this, actually, we had 4 of the storefronts are now filled. This is the website traffic. So every single state came to the website, except Arkansas because they don't have internet there. But and we had a lot of different countries come to the website because you create an experience around your city. So if you're trying to attract people on the outside to see what you're doing in, sometimes it's the experiences you build that lead people to start talking about your city. So we've now been contacted by the Netherlands and Toronto to do this conference in their city. And when you build an experience around the arts, you get people that says, I attend over 50 conferences a year, and this is one of the most innovative and useful conferences I've ever attended. So those kind of things matter to people. So we also do stuff around what's new, important issues, things around development of what's happening in real estate, entrepreneurship, places that are new or open up, and then performances. So what we get asked a lot by our performing arts groups, the ballet, and a lot of other ones, is how do we get young people into these organizations? How do people aren't buying memberships anymore? What's the next generation going to do? So normally what they say is, well, we'll have a happy hour beforehand. It's like, okay, I can go to the bar and drink if I want to drink. I know I'm young, but there's other things that I'm interested in besides having a beer. So one of the things on the left here is what we created up on top is called the Naked Ballet. And not everybody's naked, so it's not that. It basically just means it's stripped down. There's no symphony, there's no stage, and the performance happens immersed in the crowd. And 500 young people showed up to this under the age of 40, and a whole bunch of people bought subscriptions to the ballet afterwards because it was their first experience. So what I call it is a gateway drug to the arts. And on the bottom corner here is something called the Art Bus. So when there's new galleries that open up in Milwaukee or there's new art exhibits, we get a bus together, and we actually put a live band in the bus. You can see this girl singing on there in the bottom. And there's beverages on the bus, and we go from gallery to gallery to gallery to gallery. And now, the thing sells out in like 2 minutes because you're creating an experience for people, and you're delivering people right to the galleries. We have 3 buses now. There's 120 people that storm a gallery and purchase local art. So it's a really fun thing called the Art Bus, and all of these things can be created anywhere. And this is helping artists, people get into galleries they might never go into. This is helping people have this social experience around the arts that they might not usually have. And it takes a threatening thing to some people who aren't into going into galleries and makes it non-threatening for them. Our step 3, what we always do is we talk about plugging in and how do we collaborate. Whoops. So we also do this thing once in a while called wedding, and it always confuses the hell out of everybody. But we basically, what we do is we have 2 artists that paint live, and they've never worked together, and they collaborate or they get married on canvas. And we do this in unique spaces that are usually empty storefronts or empty warehouse space in the city. And we basically make a spoof of a wedding, but we make it really engaging to where everybody, there's a photo shirt, there's the first dance, that's usually done by Dance Works. There's a champagne toast. It's like everything besides a chicken dance. There's no chicken dance song. So, and you can see that this piece right here actually sold for $5,000 that night. It's Kanye West and I believe Madonna. I can't remember who it was. But when people are connected to a live experience, I think, like especially younger people, they want to see the process. And the process of creating something live is really interesting to them. And a lot of our events have live painting, and we pay the artist, and they also get to sell it, and we don't take a commission. So we also, how do we shape and create cities for the future? So Mayor Tom Barrett allowed us to have a public-private partnership about how do we solve challenges that are really difficult in the community. So it's called Turnovation, and I'm going to talk through a lot of these experiences because there's different ways to tie in arts than you might normally think. So the Turnovation basically is a tournament of innovative ideas. So Turnovation is a crowdsourced idea generation platform that addresses a community challenge. So in 2013, we did this around the foreclosure crisis in Milwaukee and what we could do to solve that challenge. We found a philanthropist or a company that wanted to brand themselves as employee brander or workplace destination, and we teamed it with the city. And what came up, so then hundreds of ideas to how we could solve this problem, hundreds of ideas come in. We pick the top 10 pitch live on stage, and one idea comes to life. In 2013, it was an initiative called Homegrown that is a $3.1 million program now in the city of Milwaukee to help that when they knock down foreclosed homes, they actually put orchards in there. The orchards have turned into markets in that neighborhood. The markets have solved the food desert problem where there's not a lot of grocery stores in some of the impoverished areas. In 2014, the night market came out of this. So it was all about arts, and I'll show a couple pictures. The night market came out of this Turnovation. I just got to point out this really good-looking guy right here. You guys see him? He's really good. He's a really interesting guy. And in 2015, we just did one actually around infant mortality. Milwaukee is one of the highest infant mortality rates in the country. And we did a software solution. So right now, a Doman company, the life sciences company, is building a software to address the food deserts in the city and infant mortality rates through a software program for the United Way that they're going to gift back to the community. So these are examples of how we incorporate artists. And here's a picture of one of the artist installations that turned into the first night market. So it's kind of a crazy art installation. It was as you walk down it, we're still building it in this picture, but if you walk down, all the shadows turn different colors, and you walk down a gateway. This was someone that won the Turnovation. What's interesting about this is we didn't even have the idea for the night market, but based on this, we saw that these spaces right here actually became really good ways to have vendor stalls in them. And so that's how we actually created the night market. So all these turned into vendor stalls in the street you saw before. So people were using an art experience that was built to sell their wares, sell their goods. And then people did all kinds of different things to this. They organically started to hang stuff from it. People were spray paint graffitiing it. It turned into this whole platform where artists in the community started using it for their own personal events. And there was a fashion show down the middle of it. So it turned into a really interesting thing that was created. We do measure a lot of goals when we work with a lot of our clients. We do work in the talent space, but we use arts as a, we work in how we engage people, new hires, perception, attendance, impressions, and again, experiences. And I always say how powerful an experience can be by a museum. So, by a show of hands, who thinks we still need museums? All of us, right? Why do you think that? Anything you can see in a museum, you can now see online still. Experiential, right? Exactly. Because the reason we need them isn't because scientifically, or there's no statistics that say we're smarter because of that. No statistics that say kids are get a better education because you have a museum in your neighborhood. But it's that experience you have when you're a kid that you tell your kids when you have it. It's so powerful that the experience can change the way things are funded, the way people perceive things. So we call it return on community. So when companies come to us and say, what's the return on investment? We say, what's your return on community? So ROC, how do you measure that? And it kind of freaks them out sometimes, but I think if everything you put in that lens of what's the return on community, you can change the way that people think. We always think big first and say no later. Initially, when I was trying to think of the concept through the night market, it was going to be a 16-block sleepover on the street with your grill and your tent. And I got the mayor on board, I got city council on board, and then I had to get myself off board. I was like, there's no way this is going to work. And it's not going to be meaningful to people. So, but we always think big first. I hate the word no right away. You know, we always challenge everything by what if? What if we could do this? And no will come later. You'll kind of come down from you'll find your scope of work, but we always start with thinking big first. And here's another picture of the night market. So the night market actually is probably one of the most diverse events in the city. Milwaukee is very segregated, but you can have kids, people from all socioeconomic backgrounds, people from all ages, people from all races that come to the night market, and they literally dance in the middle of the street all the time. It's awesome. We make a lot of mistakes. And when you're going through and working with people and you're working with place and you're working with community, there's going to be a ton of mistakes. We say every event or experience we build, the first year we just throw it out there and go, is this going to work? And if it works, the second year we invest more, and the third year is when you kind of really reap the benefits of it. But everything is set up as a pilot program for us. And this is what we spend the most time on. This step 8 here is, what will people talk about when they leave an experience? If someone comes to an event that they leave with no story to tell, or they don't take a picture, or they don't have a memory, then you're not creating an experience for them to connect to. So some of the stories that we like to talk about are spaces that they've never been. So we do 182 experiences a year, and they're all in different locations. And that's meant to purposeful, because we want to also connect people to our cultural assets and what they have that the city has. We do information that inspires people. Obviously through the arts, you're inspiring people every day. We do things that people can interact with. So a lot of stuff we build, we actually build pocket parks for under $1,000, and that was one of our models, and we do it in all different locations. How do we, for under $1,000, how can we make almost an adult playground? Those things that people interact with. One of the things we're working on now at Marquette University is the concept of social furniture. So, and I'm working with a local artist to rapid prototype a way that people interact more in person when they're out in the public space. So if you walk down to pretty much any main street in the United States, they have the one bench where you're kind of sitting in a line, and it's not meant to be interactive. It's like you just stare out in the space. And usually it's you're looking at a road, and you're like, why would I want to look at a road all day with this? Why? So what we did was actually, we took one bench like that, and then we built X's. And the X's actually allowed for people that didn't know each other to sit on it, to put your drink in the middle, and kids to climb on it. So Marquette is looking to fund this, and the artist is trying to turn this concept into something they would sell in public. Step 9, we have a budget for creatives. If there's no budget for creatives, there's no event. We pay every artist last year we spent $300,000 on individual artists and for commissions to actually pay them for their time, pay them for their project. And again, we don't take commissions on any of their work. It's really meant to say that what we don't want to happen is do this for exposure. I can't stand that. Exposure is what pays the bills, so we don't expect that. If people have a marketing budget, they can have a creative budget. There's no experience without that. And then we focus on relationships. A lot of our things are social by nature, and the reason for that is because we want people to interact with each other, meet each other, become friends, become connected to the artist, hear the story, and then also, I'm just having a good time with this somewhere. Okay. So that's our 10 steps to what any city can do. So right now I am in Wisconsin Rapids, Stevens Point, and Wausau, and Appleton actually, doing this for the community and helping them with capacity to think through how they can do this in their community and how we can make it better for them. This is, and I'll go back to, this is an ice graffiti wall. So an artist that, actually in Racine is one of the best ice sculptors in the United States, actually. So we use him for all of our events, and he created this ice graffiti wall where everybody can kind of graffiti in the ice at the event. So what we're working on right now is the largest statewide talent attraction event called Young Professional Week. Last year it was 100 events in 8 different cities in 1 week. This year it's going to be 20 different cities across the state, building experiences for 1 week so people can connect to it. Kenosha is part of that. Y-Link is one of our members here. And we're working on this thing to put Wisconsin on the map nationally. And that's my 20 minutes. Should I take a question or two? Do we have time? I know that went really fast because I was timing myself here. Go ahead. Oh yeah, that's a good question. How do we get paid? So companies will pay us. So basically what we do is we take marketing dollars from corporations and we fund artists with them. And we fund community and programming with them. So they pay us a fee, our human resource budget comes out of it. How do we get their employees engaged in the community? And there's a service for that, there's a fee, and then what we do is pass on through experiences. So there's team building things, so that the night market, there's like a team. Grafe, which is an engineering firm, actually has fire pits and they roast s'mores on the street. So it's a way for their employees to connect to the community, their employees to connect to each other, and then there's a fee for that. There's also consultative fees where we go around and do this kind of capacity building and help people. And then sometimes like for other cities and towns, the city or town will pay us. Yeah, a lot of private corporations. Yeah. Like our biggest funder is Associated Bank, so they pay us like an annual retainer fee. Yeah. Go ahead.
If you were to suggest, one or two most important things for a community to do or to be aware of to progress, what would you say those are?
I focus on main streets. Focus on like if right out here is really neat. Like every time I come down here, I like walking. I like to build infrastructure. There's opportunity in here, and to get that kind of density, that's one thing. And then having the creatives like today, why this is important to have the creatives at the table, as opposed to say, hey, can I pay you for this after everything's been decided. So those are really important. I focus a lot on main streets. I think that was the most important thing, is like have a good heart of the city and then build out. Okay. Thank you guys, appreciate it.
All right, that was great. Thank you so much, Jeremy, for coming tonight. And he's going to be with us throughout the next couple hours as we get into our visioning. And he's our MC for the night, so you'll see more of Jeremy and be able to ask him questions when we're all wrapping up here. So we're going to keep moving. My friend Francisco is just setting me up. Are we good? Okay. So my name is Amy Greil. I am, wow, was that mute? That was nice. So I work with the University of Wisconsin Extension, and I've also been really involved on this project called Kenosha Rising. So much like Jeremy was saying,